They say space is silent, empty, a vacuum where no sound can travel. But that night, sitting in the control room of the observatory, I realized that silence itself has a voice, if you listen long enough. The signal first came in as static. At least, that's what I told myself. A faint hiss buried deep within the background noise of our radio scans. Normally, I would have logged it as interference, a satellite leak, cosmic radiation, or the hum of our own instruments. But this was different. It pulsed, not rhythmically like a beacon. No, it was uneven, almost hesitant, like something was struggling to form words. I leaned closer to the speaker, frowning as I adjusted the frequency. For a moment, the static grew louder, then softened again. My hand froze on the dial. There, I swear I heard it, a whisper. Just one word, carried through the noise, so faint that I questioned if I'd imagined it. A breath of sound stretched across light years. My name, Daniel. I ripped off my headset, heart pounding so hard it rattled my ribs. No. Impossible. Space doesn't whisper. Space doesn't call your name. I glanced around the room. Empty. Midnight shifts were always lonely. The others were asleep, or pretending to be, leaving me with the machines and the endless sky. I told myself it was fatigue, too much coffee, too many nights staring at spectral lines until they blurred. Still, my hands trembled as I forced the headset back on. The static continued, calm and indifferent, as though mocking me. No words now, just the soft crackle of space. But I knew what I'd heard. I didn't log it. Protocol demanded I should have. Every anomaly, no matter how small, gets written down. But something in me hesitated. Writing it down felt like admitting it was real. And if it was real, I stared out the wide observation window. Above, the stars burned like cold lanterns, scattered across black infinity. And there, near the edge of our mapping zone, sat the thing we all feared yet couldn't resist studying, Vespera 9, the black hole. A name chosen by the higher-ups, though the crew had other nicknames for it. The Maw, the throat of God. My favorite was the grave, because that's what it was. An endless grave, swallowing light, time and matter alike. It was near Vespera 9 that the signal had originated. Not from a planet, not from a star, not from anything measurable, just the black hole itself. I didn't sleep when my shift ended. I stayed awake, replaying the noise again and again through my private terminal. Each time, I convinced myself I could almost hear it, that fragile syllable shaped like my name. My rational brain fought against it, dragging out explanations, pareidolia, audio illusions, an overlap of frequencies that mimicked speech. But deep in my chest, a colder instinct whispered a different truth. It wasn't an accident. Something out there had spoken, and it knew me. By the third night, I couldn't keep it secret anymore. I found myself in the mess hall with Alina, our communications officer. She was sharp-eyed, with the patience of someone who'd spent her life listening for signals most people would never hear. "Lena," I said quietly, sliding my recorder across the table. "Tell me what you hear." She raised a brow, took the device, and pressed play. Static filled the air between us. Minutes passed. Just static. My stomach churned. Had I imagined everything? Then her eyes widened. Just for a second, a flicker of surprise quickly masked. She set the recorder down, folded her arms, and leaned back. "Where did you get this?" she asked. "Near Vespera 9, I whispered. "It's not interference, is it?" Her gaze held mine, steady but unreadable. Finally, she shook her head. "No, it's not." The words sent a shiver through me, colder than the void outside. Because deep down, I'd been hoping she'd laugh. Tell me I was crazy, that I'd been chasing phantoms in the static. But instead, she confirmed what I already feared. The black hole wasn't silent. It was whispering. Elena didn't speak of it again, at least not in public. But I saw the way she lingered by her station more often. Her head tilted slightly as though straining to catch something the rest of us couldn't hear. For a few days, life aboard the observatory returned to its usual rhythm. Routine maintenance, endless data collection, the quiet hum of machines monitoring the cosmos. Yet beneath the surface, tension grew. Whispers have a way of spreading, even when no one dares to voice them aloud. It was Commander Hayes who broke the silence. He called us into the conference chamber, a narrow room with walls lined by glowing star charts. His presence filled the space, tall and broad-shouldered, the kind of man who carried discipline in every step. But that day there was something in his eyes, something that unsettled me. "We've received a directive," Hayes said. His voice was steady, but his jaw was tight. "High Command wants a closer look at Vespera 9. They've approved a manned approach." The room fell quiet. Everyone knew what that meant. A closer look at a black hole was another way of saying a brush with death. Our observatory orbited at a safe distance, far enough that its pull was negligible. But a direct approach, that was suicide. Alina was the first to speak. Commander, with respect, why risk it? Our remote probes can gather enough data. Hayes's gaze shifted to her, then to me, before sweeping across the room. Because something is broadcasting from the event horizon, a signal. Not noise, not interference, a pattern. A chill swept through me. So it wasn't just me, or even just Alina. Command itself had heard the whispers. They want us to find the source, Hayes continued. And if possible, establish communication. A low murmur rippled across the table. Communication with what? With a black hole. With whatever lingered inside it. The thought was absurd, and yet the whisper of my name echoed in my memory, taunting me. The mission was approved. No one dared to refuse, though I could see the unease etched into every face. We were explorers, yes, but this felt different. Exploration usually carried the promise of discovery, of progress. This felt like stepping willingly into a grave. Preparations began immediately. Our ship, the Erebus, was a small reconnaissance vessel, fast and maneuverable. Designed for short-range missions, not deep space endurance. I watched the crew ready her, hands moving with mechanical precision, but their eyes told a different story, dread. The night before launch, I couldn't sleep. I sat in my quarters, staring at the flickering readout of the signal on my console. The static rose and fell, and buried deep within, faint as breath, was the whisper. Always the same, Daniel. Each time it spoke, I felt a pressure in my skull, as though the void itself leaned closer. I tried shutting the console off, but the sound lingered in my head, echoing in the silence. When I finally drifted into uneasy sleep, I dreamed of falling. A vast mouth opened in the dark, swallowing stars like crumbs. I tumbled toward it, weightless, powerless, and just before I vanished into its depths, I heard the whisper again. Louder now, clear and sharp. Come closer. I woke drenched in sweat, heart pounding. The following morning, we launched. The Erebus detached from the observatory with a shudder, her thrusters flaring as she turned toward the abyss. Through the viewport, Vespra 9 loomed, larger than I'd ever seen it. No image or hologram had ever done it justice. It was not merely black. It was an absence, a wound carved into space itself. Around its rim, light bent and twisted, stars smearing into warped arcs. Beside me, Alina sat at her console, her face pale but composed. Hayes stood at the helm, his expression unreadable. No one spoke for a long time. What was there to say? We were sailing toward a thing that should not be understood, should not even exist in human terms. And yet it called to us. Hours passed. The gravity grew stronger, subtle at first, then undeniable. Our instruments flickered with strange readings. Radiation levels fluctuating, time distortions spiking, signals overlapping. Then it came again. Through the comms system this time, cutting across channels with eerie clarity. A whisper, soft but undeniable. Not just my name. Not anymore. It spoke all of ours, one by one. The cabin filled with silence, every face drained of color. Hayes gripped the helm tighter, his knuckles white. Stay focused, he barked, but his voice cracked. For the first time since I joined this mission, I saw fear in his eyes. And I realized the truth. We weren't approaching Vesper 9. It was waiting for us. The further we descended toward Vesper 9, the quieter the ship seemed to grow. Not in any measurable way. The hum of the engines was steady. The ventilation system whirred as it always did. The monitors beeped their steady rhythm. And yet, the silence pressed on us like a weight. Every sound felt muted, swallowed, as if the void beyond our hull were already reaching in to smother us. At first, no one said anything. Hayes busied himself at the helm, navigating the Erebus with rigid precision. Elena monitored the signal, her fingers dancing over the console, her jaw clenched. The others, Keller, Rami, Cho, sat in uneasy silence. We were professionals. We knew how to endure long stretches without chatter. But this was different. This was the silence of something listening. The whispers began to grow bolder. They didn't come through the comms anymore. Not exactly. They came from nowhere, or everywhere, sliding into the corners of our thoughts. When I turned my head too quickly, I swore I heard them just behind me, vanishing before I could catch the words. Sometimes it was only fragments. Closer. Hungry. Remember? Other times it was voices I recognized. My mother long dead calling my name. Elena's voice, though she hadn't spoken. Once, impossibly, I heard myself. That night, I dreamt again of falling. The black hole loomed beneath me, its pull irresistible. But this time I wasn't alone. Shapes fell with me, my crew, their bodies stretched thin like ribbons of light. their faces twisted in terror. They screamed, but no sound came out. Only whispers, always whispers. I woke gasping, my pulse hammering in my throat. I wasn't the only one. Keller staggered into the mess hall with eyes bloodshot, his skin pale and clammy. He clutched a flask, his hand shaking. "Can't sleep," he muttered. "Can't shut it out." Alina snapped at him. "Drinking won't help. Neither will pretending nothing's wrong." Keller shot back, his voice cracking. "It knows us. You've all heard it. Don't you lie to me." No one answered. We didn't need to. The truth hung in the air between us. Later, during my shift at the console, Cho leaned closer to me. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "I heard my brother," she said. I turned to her, frowning. "Your brother?" She nodded, eyes wide and haunted. "He died on Titan Station 10 years ago. But I swear it was his voice. He was calling me, begging me to follow." Her words sank into me like ice. Because I had heard my father the night before, and he had been dead for 15 years. The strangest part was Hayes. He acted as though nothing unusual was happening. He barked orders, checked our trajectory, studied the instruments, but never once acknowledged the whispers. His stoicism should have reassured us, but instead it felt wrong, too forced. One evening, I caught him in the helm alone. He didn't notice me at first. He was leaning forward, lips moving silently, listening, answering. When he saw me, his expression hardened instantly, his jaw clamping shut. "Something wrong, Lieutenant?" he asked, his tone sharp. I shook my head, retreating. But the image lingered. Our commander wasn't ignoring the whispers. He was conversing with them. Days blurred together. The gravity distortions grew worse. Time itself began to stutter. Hours slipped by unnoticed. Sometimes minutes stretched endlessly. Sometimes entire shifts vanished in an instant. I couldn't trust my own sense of reality anymore. None of us could. Rami broke first. He started screaming in his bunk, thrashing against the restraints until we rushed in to hold him down. His eyes were wild, rolling, his voice hoarse with terror. "It's inside me," he shouted. "It's in my head. It's pulling me apart." A haze sedated him, his face unreadable, but the rest of us didn't sleep that night. The silence deepened. Not the silence of space, but a suffocating quiet within the ship, broken only by the sound of our own breathing and the ever-present, ever-hungry whispers. And in that silence, one thought began to take root in my mind, one I couldn't shake, no matter how I tried. What if the black hole wasn't just pulling us closer physically? What if it was pulling us closer in other ways, inside our thoughts, inside our memories? What if the whispers weren't reaching out to us, but reaching through us? By the 5th day in Vespera 9's grip, I stopped pretending the whispers weren't real. They followed me everywhere, through the corridors, into my dreams, echoing in the very silence of my own skull. At first they had been faint, scattered fragments of thought, like radio static. But now the words sharpened, and they were speaking to me. Elena caught me staring into the comms console too long, my lips moving. She grabbed my shoulder. "Lieutenant, what are you doing?" I blinked, startled. "Listening? To what?" I hesitated. How could I explain? The signal was still on her monitors, still reduced to nonsense by her instruments. But beneath the numbers and distortion I could hear voices. I whispered. Her expression tightened. For a moment I saw her fear, not just of the black hole, but of me. That night I dreamt differently. No falling, no endless descent. Instead, I was standing at the edge of something vast, an event horizon stretching like a wall of black glass. Behind it, something moved. Something impossibly large, its presence pressing against the barrier like a palm on thin ice. It whispered, and this time I understood. "We have waited." The words shuddered through me like a physical force. My knees buckled in the dream, my breath caught in my throat. It was not a voice carried on sound. It was thought itself, injected raw into the marrow of my being. I woke with blood on my lips where I'd bitten down too hard. At breakfast, I told no one. But I could feel the eyes of the crew on me. They sensed something had shifted. Later, Keller snapped. He cornered Alina in the lab, shouting, "It's in the data! I hear it, too! You're ignoring it because it scares you. Because it isn't possible." Elena fired back. Her hands shook as she gripped the console. "Black holes don't talk. They destroy. That's all they do." Keller's laugh was wild, broken. "Then why does it know my name?" The room went silent, no one breathed. And then, as if mocking him, the ship's intercom crackled. Not with static, not with garbled distortion, but with a voice, clear, cold, and unearthly. The sound froze us all. The syllables stretched, impossibly deep, vibrating in our bones. It was not human, but it was unmistakably intelligent. Keller collapsed to his knees, sobbing. It spoke. God help us. It spoke. Alina slammed the controls, trying to shut it out, but the voice wasn't coming from the intercom. The speakers were dead unlit, yet we all heard it, each of us inside our own skulls. Hayes didn't flinch. He stood at the center of the helm, staring into the void beyond the glass. His face was stone, but his hands gripped the railing so tight I thought the metal would bend. It's testing us, he muttered. It wants to see who will answer. No one replied. The silence stretched, broken only by the creak of the ship and Keller's muffled sobs. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat alone at the viewport, staring into the abyss, and the black hole whispered again. You hear us. You understand. You are chosen. I pressed my palms to my ears, but it didn't matter. The voice was already inside. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tear it out. But instead, I found myself whispering back. What do you want from me? For a long moment, there was only silence. And then, to remember what was lost. To free what is bound. To join what waits in the dark. The words seared into me like fire. I didn't know what they meant, but I knew with absolute certainty. This was no hallucination. The black hole had spoken, and it had chosen me. The morning after the voice first spoke, the ship felt colder. Not in temperature, but in spirit. Something fragile had cracked between us, and the pieces would not fit back together. At breakfast, nobody spoke. The clatter of spoons and cups echoed louder than words. Keller stared at the floor, his eyes hollow, while Alina sat stiff, her hands trembling around her ration packet. Hayes never touched his food, just stared at the viewport as though daring the abyss to speak again. I wanted to say something, anything, to break the silence. But then the whisper returned, not aloud, not for all of us, only in my mind. They fear what they cannot bear. But you will listen. I froze. My spoon hovered mid-air. Sweat trickled down my spine. I forced myself to chew, to act normal. If the others noticed, they said nothing. Later, Keller came to me wild-eyed. He grabbed my arm so hard it hurt. You hear it too, don't you? His voice was a desperate hiss. Don't lie to me. I know you do. It called my name. I swallowed. The truth pressed heavy on my tongue. Yes. Relief flooded his face, but it was the kind of relief that broke men, not healed them. It has chosen us, he whispered. We're meant to be here. That evening, an argument exploded in the command deck. We turned back, Alina shouted. Her voice cracked with fury and fear. We'll burn thrusters and get as far from this thing as possible. Do you all want to end up insane? Or worse? Keller slammed his fist on the table. We can't leave, don't you understand? It's trying to teach us to speak, to reach across the gulf of time itself. This is the greatest discovery in human history. Yelena's face flushed red. You're not listening to discovery, Keller. You're listening to madness. Hayes raised a hand, silencing them both. His voice was iron. We stay. Alina rounded on him. Captain, with respect, I said we stay. His eyes burned with something I didn't recognize. Not duty, not curiosity, something hungrier. That was when I realized Hayes had been hearing it too. The crew began to splinter. Alina barricaded herself in the lab, locking her console from the rest of us, muttering that she'd purge the comms array if she had to. Keller stalked the corridors, whispering back to the void under his breath like a prophet awaiting revelation. Hayes retreated into silence, a general who no longer needed his soldiers' trust. And me? I sat in my bunk, shaking, as the whispers grew bolder. You are the bridge. Through you we return. Sometimes I heard fragments of other voices, screams, laughter, weeping. Sometimes I felt my own thoughts weren't my own anymore. Like someone else was inside, shifting the furniture of my mind, rearranging memories I thought were safe. On the 6th day, the first death happened. Elena found Rami, the navigator, floating in the cargo bay. No blood, just wide, staring eyes and lips parted as if he died mid-conversation. The look on his face wasn't fear, it was awe. Alina was hysterical. He opened the airlock. She cried. He walked out. He was smiling. Keller only whispered. It called him home. We sealed his body bag and consigned it to the black. The silence afterward was unbearable, thick as oil. That night, the whispers didn't let me sleep. They repeated Rami's last words over and over, though he'd never spoken them aloud to us. It is beautiful. It is waiting. I pressed my palms against my skull until it hurt. But the voice only grew louder, more insistent. And deep down, against my will, I began to wonder, was Keller right? Sleep had become impossible. The whispers were constant now, a low susurrus woven into every thought, every heartbeat. When I closed my eyes, I saw shapes I couldn't name. Vast geometries folding in ways the human mind was never meant to perceive. The black hole wasn't just pulling at the ship, it was pulling at us. I spent hours in the comms array, studying the frequencies. At first, I told myself it was just data, noise. But then I found the pattern. Hidden inside the static was structure pulses timed like syllables, shifts in pitch that mimicked intonation. Not chaos, not randomness, a language. And the horrifying part, it was learning ours. I fed it fragments of our transmissions, basic words, signals, commands. Within hours, it began mirroring them back in distorted whispers. Then, slowly, it reshaped them, formed new sentences. The first clear phrase nearly stopped my heart. We were here before you. I staggered back from the console, bile rising in my throat. Before us, what did that mean? When I showed Keller, he fell to his knees as if in prayer. Do you understand? He whispered. This is contact, true contact. We're not alone. Alina, overhearing, stormed in. Her face was pale, eyes bloodshot from sleepless nights. It's not contact, she snapped. It's invasion. It's rewriting us. Look at yourselves. She was right. Keller's eyes glittered with fanatic light. Hayes, silent as ever, had begun drawing strange symbols across the command deck walls with a piece of chalk, over and over. Circles inside circles, spirals collapsing inward. The same pattern that haunted my dreams. But I couldn't stop listening. Night after night I returned to the comms. The voice grew clearer, stronger. It spoke of stars before hours, of civilization swallowed by time, of knowledge hidden in singularity. It said the black hole wasn't a void, but a gate. We are the ones who fell. We are the ones who remain. Open the door and we return. I wanted to deny it, to shut it out, but every word felt like it had always been inside me. As though I weren't learning something new, but remembering something forgotten. One night Hayes appeared behind me without a sound. His face was gaunt, his eyes burning with feverish intensity. You've heard it, he said flatly. It wasn't a question. Yes, I whispered. Then you know what must be done. He handed me a data slate. On it were calculations, burn vectors, thruster alignments, navigation paths. A trajectory that would take us closer. Too close, I stared at him in horror. That's suicide. Hayes leaned in, his breath hot against my ear. No. It's ascension. Keller agreed immediately. Alina screamed at us, begged us, tried to sabotage the engines. But Hayes locked her out, overriding her access codes with ones the voice had whispered to him in the dark. That was when I realized the truth. Hayes wasn't captain anymore. None of us were. The black hole was in command, and it was calling us home. Alina cornered me in the maintenance bay, her face pale and trembling. The hum of the engines rattled through the deck beneath our boots. You can't let them do this, she hissed. They'll kill us all? Don't you hear it? Don't you feel it? Her words struck deep because I did feel it. The voice never left me anymore. It was there when I spoke, when I dreamed, when I tried to think of anything but the blackness outside our hull. A constant murmur, like an ocean tide pressing against the walls of my skull. Hayes and Keller had already set the trajectory. In 24 hours, the ship would begin its descent toward the event horizon. And God help me, I wasn't sure if I wanted to stop them. The voice promised things. Knowledge beyond imagination. Answers to every question humanity had ever asked. The key to existence itself. All it wanted was for us to come closer, to cross the line no one had dared cross before. But then Alina's hand closed around mine, shaking. It's lying, she whispered. Whatever's in there, it's not salvation. It's hunger. I looked at her, and for the first time in weeks, I saw someone human. Not a zealot like Keller, not a hollow husk like Hayes, just a terrified woman clinging to reason. That moment became my anchor. I decided I would stop them. The plan was fragile, desperate. Alina and I would sabotage the engines before the burn. Without propulsion, the ship would remain in orbit, safe, for now. But nothing stays secret on a ship this small. When we crept into the engineering bay, Hayes was already there. His eyes were black pits, bloodshot and wide, his hands slick with grease as he fine-tuned the thrusters. He didn't even look up when we entered. You can't fight it, he said calmly, as if reading my thoughts. The voice isn't outside. It's inside us now. In you. In her. You'll betray each other before the end. Keller appeared in the doorway, blocking our exit. His lips were moving silently, whispering to himself, or perhaps back to the thing in the dark. Alina stepped forward, brandishing a wrench like a weapon. Stay back, she warned. Hayes finally looked at us then, and smiled. You don't have a choice, he said. And that was when alarms blared. The black hole had surged, gravity waves spiking across the hull, systems screaming with red warnings. The ship shook violently, throwing us against the bulkheads. Outside the viewport, the abyss shimmered with distorted light, like the fabric of reality itself was rippling. I clutched the rail, my mind drowning in whispers that weren't whispers anymore. They were screams. Come closer, come closer, come on SR. Elena shouted something, but her voice was swallowed in the din. Keller dropped to his knees, hands over his ears, sobbing. Hayes laughed, a raw, manic sound. "This is the threshold!" he cried. "Do you see it? Do you hear it? We've been chosen." I had seconds to act. The engine control panel blinked before me. One command, one override, and I could lock the thrusters, hold us in orbit. Or I could let Hayes complete the burn. Behind me, Elena's eyes begged me. In my head, the voice promised eternity. My hand hovered over the console, trembling. The weight of the universe pressed down. One choice, one moment, and the black hole whispered my name. I don't remember pressing the button. Maybe my hand slipped. Maybe the voice took control. Maybe deep down, I wanted to know. What I do remember is the sound. The low, grinding roar of the engines igniting, the entire ship trembling like a dying beast. We were no longer holding orbit, we were falling. Elena screamed, lunging toward me, but Keller caught her, dragging her back with crazed strength. "It's too late," he shouted over the alarms. "The path is chosen." The voice will show us the truth. The forward viewport was no longer a window, it was a nightmare. Stars bent and curved around the blackness, stretched into spirals of impossible color. Time itself seemed to stutter, moments repeating and collapsing in on each other. I blinked, and for an instant I saw myself standing outside the ship, staring in with hollow eyes. Hayes stumbled toward the glass, arms outstretched, tears streaking his face. "Do you hear it?" he whispered. "It's beautiful." The whisper had grown. It was no longer a murmur, it was a chorus. Thousands, millions of voices, layered and shifting, speaking in tongues I shouldn't understand but somehow did. They told me of civilizations older than stars, of knowledge buried in the bones of the universe. They promised answers to questions I didn't even know I had. And they demanded one thing in return: everything. The ship groaned, metal shrieking under tidal forces as reality stretched around us. My body felt wrong, too heavy, then too light, my heartbeat stumbling out of rhythm with itself. Elena's face flickered, her features blurring like a corrupted image. One moment she was herself, the next she was someone I'd never met, then someone I loved long ago. Keller fell to his knees, convulsing, muttering prayers to the thing that was pulling us in. Hayes pressed his forehead to the viewport, sobbing in ecstasy. "Elena," I gasped, reaching for her, my hand shaking violently. She clung to me, her nails digging into my arm. "You have to fight it," she said. Her voice was thin, breaking. "Don't listen. Don't let it in." But it was already in. I could feel it in my blood, in the marrow of my bones, in the rhythm of my thoughts. My memories weren't my own anymore. They were bleeding into something vast and alien. I saw glimpses of worlds devoured by black suns, galaxies collapsing, whispers feeding on the echoes of entire civilizations. The black hole wasn't a void, it was a mouth, and we were already inside it. The ship screamed as we crossed the event horizon. Lights exploded, consoles burst into sparks. Hayes cried out, his skin stretching, his body unraveling like smoke in the wind. Keller's prayer turned into a guttural shriek before his voice dissolved into static. And Elena clung to me, her eyes wide with terror, until her face began to blur again, faster and faster, cycling through 1,000 strangers, 1,000 fates. I tried to hold on. God, I tried. But the voice drowned everything. "You are ours now." The last thing I remember before the ship broke apart was silence. A silence deeper than death, deeper than time itself. And in that silence, the whisper of my own voice calling back. I woke to silence. At first, I thought I was dead. My body was weightless, drifting, and the only sound was my ragged breathing echoing inside the helmet. No alarms, no screaming, no voices. But then I opened my eyes. The black hole was gone. Or rather, I was gone from it. I floated in a field of stars, my body wrapped in the emergency cocoon of an escape pod. The pod systems flickered weakly, but somehow, impossibly, I had survived. Elena wasn't with me. Neither was Keller. Neither was Hayes. Just me. Always me. I should have felt relief. But instead, a sickness grew in my stomach because I knew what had really happened. You don't escape a black hole. Not a hole. The whispers had let me go. The pod's radio crackled to life, faint but unmistakable. A voice called out, distant but human. "This is Control. Do you copy?" Expedition craft, respond. My throat tightened. My hands trembled as I reached for the comm switch. I wanted to shout to beg for rescue, but my lips didn't move the way I told them to. Instead, I whispered. A sound slid from my mouth, low and inhuman, like static forming words. Not mine. Not anymore. The voice on the radio stuttered. Say again, we can't. And then the signal dissolved, their words swallowed by the same soft murmur I carried inside me. I realized then that I was no longer a man calling for help. I was a transmitter, a vessel. The black hole hadn't taken me. It had sent me back. My reflection on the pod's cracked glass smiled at me, though I hadn't moved a muscle. Its lips formed the words I refused to say aloud. We are here now. I shut my eyes, but the whisper didn't stop. It would never stop. It was in me, around me, through me. And soon, it would be in them too. I drifted alone in the void, waiting for the rescue ships that were already on their way. They thought they would be saving me, but I knew the truth. I wasn't the survivor of the mission. I was the beginning of something else, something that had waited, patient and hungry, for billions of years. And now, at last it had found its voice,